I know this is gonna sound like one of those stories you see on weird forums or YouTube channels, but I swear this happened to me just last Easter. I live alone, no roommates, no family close by, just me and my dog in a small house on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. Easter Sunday was pretty normal at first. I got up around 9, made some coffee, took the dog out, and was just about to sit down with breakfast when I heard a knock at the door. Not the doorbell, an actual knock, which was already weird. Most people who come by use the bell, and honestly, I wasn't expecting anyone. I figured maybe it was a neighbor or something. But when I opened the door, it was a little kid, just standing there, alone. He couldn't have been more than 7, maybe 8 years old. Pale skin, kind of messy brown hair, dressed in clothes that didn't really match, like he'd picked them out himself or something. He had a little backpack with some kind of cartoon character on it, but no jacket even though it was still chilly that morning. He looked up at me and just said super calmly, "I'm supposed to be at Grandma's house." That's it. No hi, no asking for help, just that one sentence. I asked him where his grandma lived, and he said, "I don't know the address." He didn't seem scared or lost. He just stood there like he was waiting for me to do something about it. That weird calmness was what threw me off the most. I told him to wait there for a second and grabbed my phone. I wasn't sure what else to do besides call the non-emergency police line. It just didn't feel right letting a kid wander around by himself like that. While I was on hold, I peeked back outside to check on him. He hadn't moved an inch, just staring straight ahead, not at me, not at the street. Like vacant. I tried to ask him more questions, his name, what his grandma looked like, if he remembered anything about the house, but he just kept giving these short, flat answers. "I don't know. I think it's close. She makes eggs." Stuff like that, but no details. It was like talking to someone who only half understood what was going on. While I waited for the dispatcher to come on the line, I remember feeling more and more unsettled. It wasn't just that the kid was lost, something about him felt off. Like Uncanny Valley, but in real life. He blinked at strange intervals, almost like he had to remind himself to do it. And his voice didn't match his age, if that makes sense. It wasn't deep or anything, but it had this weird flat tone, like he was repeating something he'd memorized. My dog, who's usually super friendly and curious, stayed in the living room and didn't come near the door, which was super unusual. It was like she didn't want anything to do with whatever was outside. That's when I started to get this crawling feeling in the back of my neck, like something was really, really wrong. Eventually, I got through to someone and explained the situation. They said they'd send an officer over to check things out and asked me to keep the child there if I could. I said sure, and I told the kid the police were coming to help him find his grandma. No reaction, not even a nod. He just kept standing there, looking out toward the street like he was waiting for a car or someone to show up. I asked if he wanted to come inside to warm up. Not that I was dying to let him in, but it was cold, and he looked out of place. But he said no almost automatically. That was the first time his voice had a little sharpness to it, like it was the only thing he was really sure about. "No," he said. "I have to wait here." Like that. It must have been about 10 minutes later when I looked down at my phone to check how long it had been. I swear it felt like forever. But when I looked back up, he was gone. Not walking down the street, not across the lawn, just gone. Like I blinked and he vanished. I even stepped outside and looked around, called out for him, but there was no sign. It was broad daylight, and my street is super quiet. If someone had come to pick him up, I would have heard a car. And there's no way he could have run off without me seeing or hearing something. He was just not there anymore. That's when a knot started forming in my stomach, and I felt this wave of dread hit me out of nowhere. The cop showed up maybe 5 minutes later. I explained everything. The knock, the kid, how he said he was going to his grandma's but didn't know where, how weird he was acting, and how he disappeared. The officer was polite but clearly skeptical. He asked if I'd been drinking or taking any medication. I wasn't offended. I kind of expected that, but I insisted I was completely sober and awake. I even showed him my call log and the time on my phone to back it all up. He walked around the block, knocked on a few doors, asked some neighbors if they'd seen anything. No one had. No one recognized the description either. One guy across the street said he'd been out on his porch the whole time and didn't see any kid at all. The officer took my statement and said he'd check with dispatch to see if there were any missing child reports that matched. I asked if he wanted to see my doorbell cam footage, and that's when I remembered something that made my blood run cold. My doorbell camera never went off. I checked the app, and there was nothing. Not even a recording of me opening the door. It was like nobody had been there. but I know I heard the knock. I talked to that kid. I stood there with him for a solid 10 minutes. I even remember how dirty his sneakers were, like he'd been walking for a long time. It made no sense. And when I told the officer about the camera, he just kind of raised his eyebrows and said, "Yeah, that's odd." In that way people do when they don't believe you but don't want to argue. About an hour later, the officer called me back. He said they'd checked the local and regional databases, and there were no missing child reports matching the description I gave. Not even close. He asked again if I was absolutely sure about what I saw. I told him as calmly as I could that I wouldn't have called the cops if I wasn't sure. I could tell he didn't know what to make of it either. He wasn't rude or dismissive, just confused. Said he'd file a report and let me know if anything came up. That was it. After the call ended, I just sat on my couch staring at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. My dog eventually came up and laid next to me like she could tell something was still off. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking I'd hear another knock, or worse, that I'd wake up and that kid would be standing inside my house. Every sound made me jump. I even rewatched the whole day's worth of doorbell cam footage in case I missed something, but there was nothing. Just me walking the dog that morning, going back in, and then hours of silence. No kid, no knock, no movement. I ended up posting in a local Facebook group just to see if anyone had seen this kid. No responses, not even trolls. It was like he'd been dropped into my life and then erased. To this day, I still have no idea what I saw or why it happened. I've replayed it in my head 1,000 times and none of it adds up. What keeps messing with my head is how normal everything looked. It wasn't like a ghost or shadow person or any of those typical stories you hear. This was just a regular-looking kid standing on my porch in daylight saying he needed help. And yet somehow, none of it was normal. The way he talked, how calm he was, how he vanished without a trace, it still gives me chills. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined it, like maybe it was a super vivid dream or a hallucination or something. But then I remember the way the air felt when he was standing there, heavy, almost like pressure. I wasn't scared of him at first, but my body reacted like I should be. Like something in me knew there was something wrong. Since that day, I've kept my porch light on every night, even though I know it wouldn't matter if something like that wanted to come back. I never saw the kid again, never heard anything else about a missing child, and the cops never followed up. It was like it happened, then the world just moved on. But I haven't. Every Easter since, I wake up early without meaning to, and I half expect to hear that knock again. I still don't have an explanation for any of it, and the worst part, deep down, I'm not even sure that was a kid. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it found my door that morning, and then it left like it was never supposed to be seen in the first place. I don't even know why I'm posting this, honestly. I guess I just need to get it out of my system, because it's been stuck in my head ever since it happened. This was on Easter Sunday last year. I was babysitting for this family a couple streets away from mine. Nice people, 2 kids, super chill job. I'd watched the kids before, nothing ever weird. The parents left around 6 p.m. to go out for dinner and church. Said they'd be back by 11. Everything went normal. Fed the kids, let them watch a movie, then got them to bed by 8:30. After that, I just crashed on the couch scrolling through my phone. The neighborhood is quiet, a little too quiet sometimes, and their house sits on this open lot with no fence in the front, which always kind of creeped me out, but I was used to it. It was a little after 9:30 when I heard this really soft tapping on the front window. It was subtle, like someone gently drumming their fingernail against the glass. I looked up immediately, kind of startled, but I didn't see anything. My first thought was maybe the wind or a tree branch, but then it happened again. Tap, tap, tap. 3 slow, even knocks. That's when I actually got up and peeked through the curtain. Nothing. The street was totally still, just that one streetlight at the corner casting a dull glow. I stood there for a few seconds, staring out, expecting something to move, but it was dead quiet. I tried to laugh it off. I figured maybe it was a dumb Easter prank, or just my imagination messing with me. I didn't feel scared yet, just uneasy. About 10 minutes later, I heard it again. Same tapping, 3 slow knocks. This time it sounded just a little louder, like maybe it was closer to the center of the window. I didn't move right away. I just froze. I remember holding my breath and staring at the window like an idiot, waiting for it to happen again. But it didn't. I finally grabbed my phone and turned the flashlight on, walked over slowly, and pulled the curtain back a little more this time. Still nothing. No one. I even opened the front door and peeked out for a second, which I realize now was probably really stupid. The porch light was off, so I couldn't see far, but there was this weird feeling in my chest, like I was being watched. I closed the door fast and locked it again. At that point I started texting my boyfriend, just telling him something weird was going on. I didn't want to freak out or make it a big deal, but I needed to talk to someone. He tried to joke around and said maybe the Easter Bunny was out there messing with me. I forced a laugh, but my hands were kind of shaking. I turned the TV back on to distract myself, but every few minutes I'd glance at the window like I was expecting to see a face there. Nothing else happened for a while, so I started convincing myself it was probably just nerves, or maybe even one of the kids trying to prank me before bed, though I knew deep down they were way too young and too far down the hall to have done it without me hearing. Around 10:15, just when I was starting to feel a little calmer, I heard the back door handle rattle. Not loud, not aggressive, just this slow, quiet jiggle like someone was testing it. My stomach dropped. The kids were asleep, the house was locked, and there was absolutely no reason for anyone to be back there. I didn't even go check it. I just stood up and backed away from the living room toward the hallway, trying not to make any noise. I turned off the TV and all the lights, thinking if someone was out there, they wouldn't be able to see me inside. I crouched down behind the kitchen island with my phone in my hand, ready to call 911, but part of me still didn't want to overreact. I kept telling myself maybe it was just the wind messing with the handle, but the way it moved, it felt intentional. I stayed like that for almost 15 minutes, just crouched, barely breathing, heart pounding in my ears. Nothing else happened during that time. No footsteps, no tapping, no rattling. Dead silence. Eventually, I crept back to the living room and looked out the front window again. And that's when I saw it, just barely at the edge of the yard, right where the shadows met the light from the street lamp. A man, standing completely still, facing the house. I couldn't see his face or anything. He was too far and mostly in the dark, but he wasn't moving. He just stood there like he was waiting. I remember my mouth going dry and my body kind of locking up. I didn't know what to do. I just slowly backed away, locked myself in the kids' room, and sat on the floor with my back against the door, trying to stay calm. I didn't fall asleep, obviously. I just sat there in the dark, listening for any sound, any movement. I had the kids' bedroom light off, and my phone screen dimmed, just in case. Every little creak or pop the house made felt 10 times louder. I kept thinking, what if he tries the windows? What if he's already inside? But the weirdest thing was, nothing else happened. No more tapping, no more noises. I checked the hallway a few times, super careful, and the house looked the same. Normal. The kids didn't wake up once through all of this, which made me feel both relieved and freaked out, like maybe whatever was going on was only for me. At 11:07 p.m., I heard the garage door open. The parents were finally home. I've never felt that kind of relief in my life. I met them in the hallway pretending everything was fine, because I didn't want to sound crazy or irresponsible. I didn't even mention the guy. I just mumbled something about thinking I heard noises earlier, but nothing serious. They paid me, thanked me, and I walked home in a weird daze, constantly looking over my shoulder. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying that image of the man standing at the edge of the yard, not moving, just watching. I tried convincing myself it was a prank or maybe some drunk neighbor, but it didn't sit right. It felt targeted, like he knew I was alone in that house. The next day, around noon, the mom texted me. She said they'd checked their doorbell cam footage and asked if I had noticed anything weird. My stomach dropped. I called her immediately, and she sounded shaken. She said the camera had caught the same man coming up to the porch 3 separate times during the night, around 9:30, again at 10:20, and once more at 10:50. Every time, he just stood there, didn't knock, didn't ring the bell, just stared at the door. She told me he never looked at the camera directly, which made it even creepier. It was like he knew exactly where the blind spots were. The footage showed him wearing a hoodie pulled low and standing completely still, hands at his sides. No movement, no attempt to open the door, just watching. The part that really got to me was that last time, around 10:50. That's when I was hiding in the kids' room. According to her, he stood on the porch for almost 5 minutes before walking off into the dark. She said she was going to report it, but honestly, I don't think anything ever came of it. He never came back, at least, not that they know of. I didn't babysit for them again after that. I made up excuses every time they asked, and eventually they stopped calling. I still think about that night sometimes, especially when I'm home alone. It just felt so personal, like whoever that was knew I was there alone, and they were trying to mess with me, or worse. The way he came back over and over, never doing anything obvious, just being there. Like he was testing the boundaries of how far he could go before I'd snap. And the tapping? I'm 100% sure now that it wasn't just some random prank. He wanted me to know he was there. I haven't seen him again, but sometimes when I pass by that house, I catch myself glancing at their porch, half expecting to see that figure standing there again, totally still. Just waiting. I never got a real explanation for what happened. No arrest, no follow-up, no one caught on the street. Just a weird, silent guy showing up 3 times in one night and then disappearing like it never happened. The family eventually got more cameras installed and even some motion sensor lights, but I don't think they ever figured out who he was or why he chose that night. I don't think I'll ever know either. And honestly, that's what messes with me the most. How something so strange and terrifying could just happen and then end with no reason. Like he came, did whatever he wanted to do, and then left because, I don't know. He got bored. He realized I wasn't coming outside. It's like something out of a nightmare, except it was real, and I was there, and no one can explain it. To this day, I can't hear tapping on glass without freezing up. Even if it's just a tree branch or rain, my brain goes right back to that couch, that window, and the quiet. That horrible quiet where someone was out there watching, waiting. And I'll never forget the feeling of pulling that curtain back and knowing someone had been standing just on the other side a few seconds before. I don't tell this story often because people either don't believe me or they brush it off like it's not a big deal. But it was. It still is. That night changed the way I look at windows, at shadows, even at Easter. It was supposed to be a regular night, and it was until it wasn't. I know this is gonna sound weird, but I swear on everything, this actually happened to me. I'm not the kind of person that believes in creepy stuff or conspiracy theories or anything like that. I've got 2 kids, a job that drains me, and not a lot of time to even think about weird crap. But this shook me up in a way I still can't really explain. It was right before Easter, maybe a few days out, and one of my coworkers, a guy from another department, not someone I talked to a lot, gave me this chocolate bunny. He said it was just a little something festive he'd bought in bulk to share. Nothing seemed off at first. People bring stuff all the time. Cookies, candy, leftover cupcakes. You get used to it. I brought the bunny home thinking I'd save it for the kids. It was one of those hollow ones, wrapped in shiny foil, looked totally normal. I left it on the counter for a couple days until Saturday rolled around. The kids were watching a movie, and I figured I'd break it up and give them each a piece. I want to crack it in half over a plate, and that's when I felt it, like something solid inside. It made this little clunk when it hit the plate. At first I thought it was a hard candy or a toy or something, but when I peeled the foil back and looked inside, there was this little black USB flash drive sitting right in the middle of the chocolate, halfway melted into it. No brand name, no markings. Just a plain, cheap-looking stick. Right away I got this weird feeling in my stomach, like something wasn't right. I didn't plug it in right away. Honestly, I almost threw it out. I stood there staring at it for a while, trying to figure out if this was some kind of prank, or maybe even a mistake at the factory, like some kind of bizarre manufacturing error. But the thing was wedged in there so perfectly, like someone had placed it there on purpose before the chocolate hardened around it. My oldest, who's 10, kept asking what I found, and I just told him it was trash and sent both kids back to the living room. Once they were settled, I went upstairs to my bedroom, shut the door, and plugged the drive into my laptop. My heart was already racing, like I knew something was off even before I saw what was on it. There was only one file on the drive. A video file. No name, no title, just a long string of random numbers and letters. I clicked on it, and it started playing immediately, no sound, just video. At first, I couldn't tell what I was looking at. It was grainy and dark, like footage from a cheap security camera. But then it slowly hit me. It was the side of my house, my backyard. The camera was pointed right at my living room window, from the outside. I sat there frozen, watching this shaky black and white footage of my own home. It looked like it had been recorded at night, probably late, because all the lights were off inside. But the real gut punch came when I saw movement, a figure, standing in the dark, just behind the camera, barely visible in the corner of the frame. Like whoever filmed it hadn't stepped away fast enough. I paused the video and just stared at the screen. My mouth went dry. I didn't recognize the figure. It was just a blurry silhouette, but the way it stood there, like it was watching, waiting, it made my skin crawl. I replayed that part a few times to make sure I wasn't imagining it, and yeah, every time, it was there. Just for a second, half hidden behind the camera, barely moving. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman, or even if it was real or some kind of weird reflection, but I knew one thing. Someone had been outside my house at night, close enough to record through my window. I felt sick. I checked the video file's properties, hoping to find a date or time, but there was nothing helpful. Just generic metadata. I sat there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. The worst part? My living room window doesn't have curtains. We live in a quiet neighborhood, one of those places where everyone knows each other and people don't really lock up tight. I never thought I needed to, but now, knowing someone had been out there, right outside my kids' play area, filming, I couldn't stop shaking. I ran downstairs to check the locks, then looked out the back window into the yard. Nothing. Just the usual fence, the swing set, the garden lights still glowing faintly. But suddenly everything looked different, darker, unfamiliar, like I was being watched even in that moment. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat up on the couch with every light in the house on, jumping at every noise, every creak in the walls. The next morning, I tried to act normal for the kids, but my brain was spinning the whole time. I didn't tell them what I found. What could I even say? I debated calling the cops, but what would I tell them? Someone gave me a chocolate bunny with a USB inside, and it has a creepy video of my yard. I felt like they'd just brush it off, or worse, think I was making it up. So instead, I went back to work on Monday and tried to find the guy who gave me the bunny, Mike from accounting, I think. But when I asked around, people said he hadn't been in that day, or the next. I finally caught someone who knew him better, and they said Mike had quit suddenly, just before the weekend. No notice, nothing. Just cleared out his stuff and left. That's when my stomach dropped again. I didn't even know what to do with that information. I barely knew Mike, but now I couldn't stop thinking about him, like, why me? Why give me that bunny? Was it a mistake? A warning? Something worse? I remembered his face when he handed it to me. He didn't say much, just smiled like he was in on some inside joke. At the time I didn't think twice, but now it was all I could think about. I even tried to look him up online, but there was barely anything. No social media, no photos, not even a LinkedIn. It was like he'd just disappeared. I started questioning everything. Had he even really worked there? I mean, I'd seen him around, but suddenly it felt like I had no proof he ever existed. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there again. I kept peeking through the blinds, checking the backyard every 10 minutes, even though I knew how paranoid I must have looked. Around 2 a.m., I finally crashed on the couch, too exhausted to keep pacing around. But sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up, not to a noise, but to this weird feeling, like something had changed in the room. I sat up slowly and looked toward the window, and I swear to God, I saw a shadow move across the yard. Not an animal, not the trees, someone. I didn't even breathe. I just sat there frozen, hoping it was my imagination. I stayed like that for maybe an hour, gripping my phone, ready to call someone if I had to. But nothing else happened. Eventually, the sun started coming up, and the backyard looked normal again. But I knew what I saw. After that, I installed cameras around the house. Bought the whole setup online, had it delivered the same day. I wasn't messing around anymore. But here's the thing, nothing ever showed up on the footage. For weeks, I checked it every morning, hoping I'd see something, anything, to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. But there was nothing. No movement, no people, not even a stray cat. It was like whoever had been watching me just stopped, or they knew I put the cameras up and backed off. Either way, it didn't make me feel any safer. Actually, it made it worse, because I was left with this huge, unanswered question. What was the point of that video? Why go through all that trouble, filming me, putting it on a drive, hiding it inside a damn chocolate bunny, just to never do anything again? It's been months now, and nothing else has happened. No strange packages, no weird people hanging around, no signs of anyone near the house. Life just went back to normal, but I never really did. I still lock every window before the sun goes down. I keep the cameras running 24/7, even though I've never caught anything on them. And I still think about that night, that shadow, and most of all, that USB drive. I kept it, by the way. It's in a drawer in my nightstand. I don't know why I didn't throw it away. Maybe part of me hoped someone would come back for it, and I'd finally get some kind of answer. Or maybe I just needed proof that it all really happened. Because honestly, sometimes it feels like a dream. A really messed up, vivid dream that never completely let me go. I've told a few close friends, but nobody knows what to say. Most of them try to be supportive, but I can tell they think it was just a prank, or maybe that I imagined some of it. And I get it. If someone else told me this story, I'd probably think the same thing. But I know what I saw. I know how it felt. That cold, sinking dread when I realized someone had been close enough to film my kids' toys through the window. That feeling when I saw that figure in the frame, just standing there, watching. I still see it sometimes when I close my eyes. I still feel that tension in my chest when I walk past the window at night. It's like something opened a door that day, and even though nothing's happened since, I don't think that door ever really closed. I think what messes with me the most is how it all just stopped. No explanation, no escalation, nothing. One day there was a USB drive hidden inside a piece of candy, like it was meant specifically for me. And after that, silence. It's like someone wanted me to know I was being watched, just once, and then vanish. That's what really gets under my skin. Not knowing who did it, or why, or how long they had been watching before they finally let me find that footage. Was it a warning? A mistake? Or just someone playing with my head for their own twisted reasons? I don't know. And I don't think I ever will. I still check over my shoulder. I still wake up sometimes and feel like there's someone standing just outside my window, even though I know there's not. But yeah, I guess that's it. I never got any more videos, never saw the guy from work again, and nothing else strange has happened. Life moved on, but that weird sense of being watched never totally left. I still think about that chocolate bunny every Easter. I can't even look at them in stores without feeling a knot in my stomach. And I've never told my kids any of this. They just remember getting some chocolate that weekend and nothing more. Sometimes I wish I could forget it as easily as they did. But I can't, because whatever that was, it picked me. And even though nothing happened after, even though everything went back to normal, I still don't feel safe. Not really. And I don't think I ever will.